I wore my special. Oh, yeah,
Let's
it's
see what
working.
today brings.
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglash for the WDMA, and we're going to be talking about AI, creative, and direct mail today, but mostly creative, I think. And so to get us kicked off, first I want to show you my postal USPS shirt, cool golf shirt. I think I got this when I was a keynote speaker for their Salesforce back a few years ago. I did a talk called Why Mail, and I think it's available still on YouTube. YouTube is easier to search than LinkedIn, and so I'll go try to find that link for the Why Mail if you're interested. I think it's one of the best arguments for mail, but I won't put it in the show today. And I welcome your comments, of course, as usual. So let's get over to see Tom Brady and what he's got to say. I'm kind of a fan of Tom Brady, you know.
And the results are in. Tom, you are 99.9% driving off the line in a brand new Shelby Mustang. Okay, he's good.
Such a special car.
It is.
I'm not quite sure what the 99.9% meant. I think it has something to do with the car he picked out when he rented. It's not like he keeps it. But apparently they're offering Shelby Mustangs. I'm a little intrigued that they would go to add the 99.9. Maybe they don't want to say, you know, you can get it for sure because they might be out of stock at the moment. But anyway, you know, when it's a 15-second spot, this is running on TikTok and such, so they want to have it short enough so that when you see it, you don't really have time to click it, to stop it. You know, mostly pure branding. Anyway, here's an article about the idea. Let's go over here. Tom Brady gets a little emotional. Oops. No, I don't want to go to the link. Oftentimes the links are in the PDF. Okay. One commercial, he says, apparently there's 4 commercials. Every time I ran on the field, I would yell, "Let's go!" But where was I really going? It's interesting. Also, they list him as the former New England Patriots star. You know, I thought he was playing for Tampa Bay. I guess he is, but right. Okay, so the Let's Go campaign. Tom Brady's been an authentic, enthusiastic partner for Hertz in the campaign. Tom and Yvonne bring their talent and humor. Wasn't much of a shot. You know, it's hard to evaluate talent in a 15-second spot. I appreciate my close collaboration with Hertz because it truly is so natural and authentic to me. Let's go as it relates to travel. Okay, that makes sense, I guess. Maybe I should have found the other one. Maybe it would have, you know, Tom Brady getting emotional seems a little odd. Anyway, so much for that. This was a great story. Luxury automaker Bentley takes care of bees. And you know, I was out hanging my beehives, actually my swarm traps. That sounds a little ominous, but it's not like a mouse trap. It's a habitat box for bees to move into. So this time of year, the bees get so prolific and they want to reproduce. And the way they do that is they split hives. They generate a new queen, and just before she's ready to come out of her queen cell, the old queen hightails it out with the worker bees, and the rest of the bees, maybe it's 40%, only 40% are left in the hive, but they've got lots of brood, they're ready to pop, and everything's ready to keep going. It's about an 80% survival on the they call it the mother hive, but the mother actually goes with the new hive. So the daughter queen is in the mother hive and vice versa. But anyway, so they go out looking for they look for a spot, a cavity to move into, and they actually vote on it. Most people don't know that, but there's a book called Honeybee Democracy by Tom Seeley at Cornell University, who has encouraged me a lot on my hives, and I've invented a new kind of hive that's better insulated and maybe fits the bees a little better. Anyway, so I hung those up, but Bentley just added 7 new hives to their apiary, which brings the total to 17. And last year, with just 10 hives, they generated 1,000 jars of honey. And then they count the number of bees somehow. I don't know how that works, but there's a lot of bees in a hive. According to the United Nations, a third of the world's food production depends on bees. Besides producing honey, the bees help to pollinate the on-site flora and bring wider benefits to the surrounding Cheshire countryside, according to the automaker. They also are encouraging the employees by handing out wildflower seeds. These initiatives help Bentley support local wildlife and enhance natural beauty in local areas. And there's a big movement in New York City, in fact, to put beehives up on the tops of skyscrapers and stuff, and the bees don't mind it. And in fact, urban beekeeping is a thing. I communicated with a beekeeper in Taiwan who had bees on the 40th floor of his high-rise or something crazy like that. Maybe it was the 14th floor, but anyways, way up high, because you could out his balcony. He has them on his balcony, and you can see out, and it's high-rises all around. And he gives honey to the neighbors and explains that the bees are out, they're doing their work. Unless the neighbors try to jump on the balcony and break in, they're probably not going to do any harm. So that's the kind of, to me, that's the kind of 100%, who could argue with that, right? I mean, I know there are people who do. They argue that the natural pollinators, that the bees aren't native, they came from Asia, and et cetera, et cetera. And there are other pollinators that are getting pushed out. And yes, there are arguments. Believe it or not. Okay, but if you're going to espouse a social cause, helping the bees seems like a good one. Okay, Why Creatives Need to Run Towards AI by Ben Gogh from The Drum. This was a really interesting article, I thought. The ultimate mulching machine. This is a machine that apparently moves through the forest and grinds up things so flowers can grow. I have no idea. I think that this image was generated by AI. It doesn't say so in the middle, but he calls it infinitely remixed creativity. And I think there's something to that. And he says he remembers when digital printing was a disruption, and I've learned we react in one of two ways: run towards or run away. Early experiments are endless Wes Anderson dupes. I looked up some of these. I couldn't really find them. I didn't know. Wes Anderson apparently is an actor-director or something like that. But AI is just another thing to help us remix, this is essentially true, our creativity. My kids and I have had lively discussions about, if you plagiarize, if you edit one photo from the internet, that could be copyright infringement, could be plagiarism. If you merge together 1,000 pictures or 100 pictures or even a dozen pictures, is it? If it's in the style of an artist, it's a good question. It's not clear to me. But this guy says, creating decks using Midjourney, I valued the extra time to think rather than trawling Google images to make dodgy comps. Dodgy comps would be, something that you modified enough so that you wouldn't have a copyright violation. Creative thoughts become prompts, but they have to be thought to begin with, human and machine together. And I've always argued that the machine learning that we pioneered in customer segmentation, it doesn't work. The machine isn't smart. They don't understand your offer. They don't understand the markets, and so they'll value weird variables. The number of disabled veterans over age 85, or the proportion of disabled veterans over 85 in a zip code, which is like very, very, very few. It's a very dynamic variable, but rarely validates. And so about 80 or 90% of my work as a modeler was always to eliminate the nonsense that the machine thought was meaningful. So you have to apply a keen eye editor's eye to the results. Absolutely, absolutely true. Um, the dim view says we are the monkeys at the keyboard training our future overlords. So what happens is AI gets smarter, or I don't know what. I don't know what the word is for AI because it's not intelligence. It gets trained to avoid things that the editors don't like. And the best illustration of that is that the way Google made Google Voice work, voice to text, was they looked at the errors. They looked at the places where people would go in and correct their transcription, and that showed them the problematic words and the problematic errors. And so thus they were able to, without training the voice recognition software like IBM tried to for about 20 years, they trained it to take extra special care on the tricky places. And so that's how they trained it. And in only about 3 or 4 years, they got it working much, much better than the IBM guys ever did. I talked to one of the guys at IBM who had been at IBM working on that for about 20 years. And he told me that if he would have had their data set, but, well, you could have maybe had their data set if you would have thought about it upside down like they did. A year ago, this is really a great illustration. A year ago, we planned to veganize the world's cookbooks. Time and cost killed it. In other words, I guess they were gonna offer alternative recipes to some great cookbooks, like maybe using an alternative to eggs, for example. There are eggless, a whole skew of eggless recipes that are called vegan. This year we made the yellow sticker cookbook in weeks. And I would think, yeah, if you suggested to the AI to go at a book and say, change all the eggs to this, right? Change all the bacon to this, to Bacos. Who knows what they did? But however they decided to do it, it could just munch through a cookbook and change all the meaty ingredients. Okay, so there's also a risk it could industrialize the customer experience. Okay. And customers could soon be clicking to approve a robot's suggestions. And apparently, this is really only a danger if one robot wins. If Amazon wins, they can direct everybody to the same product. But if they had any brains, they wouldn't. One of the beauties of Google search, most people don't appreciate it, is that they give you alternatives. Bing has improved on that, but Bing tended to give you one choice initially. So if you type the word Washington, just Washington, obviously it can be Washington University, it can be Washington State, it can be Washington, D.C., it could be George Washington. At least those 4 obvious ones. Google will give you, at least on the center page, it'll give you probably 3 of the 4 or maybe 4 of the 4. Bing will maybe give you mostly 1 and maybe a second one, based on the vote, I suppose. I mean, I always liked when I type in something like Moscow and you get Moscow, or Milwaukee and you get Milwaukee, Idaho, ahead of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I mean, it's insane. But in general, they've improved on that a lot. And Google is humble enough about it that it doesn't assume that it knows what you're asking, because it doesn't have enough context, and it rightly doesn't. And so as long as there's some humility in the robot, then it's still possible not to have everybody recommended the same thing. Now, I wanted to point you to an article by Trung Phan, who I think follows me on Twitter, very creative guy, and he explains that Van Gogh's Starry Night and Van Gogh's style and the Impressionist style in general were driven by the invention of the camera. That there were generations of artists who did little more than paint portraits. And many of them embraced the photo technology and, offered photos of instead of painted portraits. But there was an industry where you painted a relatively inexpensive portrait for you or your wife or somebody, and oftentimes made them look a little better than they did in real life. The problem with the camera is, of course, not everybody looks stunning on film, and you had to sit really still and some other problems with it. But the artist community, some of which started becoming photographers, and some of which started embracing a more impressionist view of the world, and now Van Gogh's Starry Night is the third most visited picture in the world. And I saw many. I was looking for this article. It's an excellent article. It's about a 10-minute read, maybe not quite that long. But anyway, but I'm not going to mark it up. I'm just going to post it on wdma.org so you can find it for yourself. And then lastly, I've been meaning to get to, did I not put this up? That would be funny. I didn't put it up, but I will now. Okay, there it is. Are your designers using the best direct mail options? By Roger Gimbel. And direct mail has a proven track record of being an effective marketing tactic even in today's digital age, because mail is more likely to be seen unless they use informed delivery, which I talked about yesterday. And this is because of the tactile nature of direct, unless you use informed delivery, which reduces mail to its digital component. And not even that, just the outside of the envelope. Okay, designers can be even more effective if they understand the fundamental strategies of successful direct mail. One of the things we did with our design team was we used to have them create the square inch analysis from the sales report. Not the marketing department, the designers. And we didn't use a square inch report, thankfully. We used percentage of page and percentage of sales tracked back to that particular book, which is much easier. Otherwise, people are trying to calculate the square inches to the third decimal, and it's really stupid. If they just wing it, they would get a better feel for the information. And then we would discuss the pages after that. We would put them all up on the wall, and we would talk about what we might do to either raise the sales or when we got to picking new items, usually we did that without the designers in the room until we were pretty well set. Okay, campaign goals. Did anyone inform the designer? And again, this was all part of the process especially of analyzing what was working and what wasn't working. And that way they got smarter over time and got to see the techniques we were applying. One example I've given before is we had little tiny Swiss Army knives, which I have them on my keychain, and they were able to, they would use extrusions, and this one, the little Victorinox came off. This was my father's, so I keep it as a memento and a remembrance. But anyway, they were only allowed to put or able to put the logo on one side. So if you put a company logo, then the Victorinox wasn't seen. And there were a bunch of inexpensive Chinese alternatives coming out in those days. And I said, people aren't getting that this is a Victorinox knife because it says Caterpillar on it. And it could be the cheap one, but we're selling it for like $15. And I said, let's put in next to it, let's put in the one with all the knives, splayed out, and a big one with a Victorinox on it, so that people understand these are genuine Victorinox knives and they stay sharp and they last a lifetime. And that knife only sold about $5,000 in the next catalog, but the one next to it, the little one, went up from about $20,000 to $80,000, about 4 times better, because it was associated. And so you don't want to be super strict, but what an insight that then the designers could understand that sometimes we don't want to follow the square inch analysis. Sometimes we want to communicate additional things. Okay, very, very helpful. campaign goals, audience profile, yeah, for solos maybe, not for catalogs so much. The power of personalization. Now, this is where I always lose it. I'm sorry about that, but you know, here's the article, okay? And it's a black man reading the mail. Um, is this a personalized photo? I don't know. In my family, my wife read the mail. She's always read the mail. I don't read the mail. I might pick up the mail, but I don't usually look at it much. I shove it in the dash of my motorcycle so I don't lose any. And demographically, black population is about 13%. So no matter what you're selling, almost no matter what you're selling, they're not going to be the majority of your customers, right? I mean, there's some exceptions, but majority. I learned, as far as personalization goes, that that you might want to resonate with the people that look like your customers. But I see that less and less. Instead, we want to check the boxes and we want to make it look like, I don't know what we want to do. It's just so, if you don't have a philosophy of personalization, then I don't exactly know what you're up to. And I don't know what this guy's up to with that, using that picture. So anyway, hi, we're new here. Dog grooming, focus on the call to action. Excellent idea. And they mentioned QR codes, and it's real important to make it visible, make it easy to use. I like to offer a phone call because it's a great way to find out what customers aren't understanding and why they can't place an order on your website. So designer education is a good investment, and I will agree with that 100%. And I would suggest that you have them read, I think, Confessions of an Ad Man is a good one by David Ogilvy, and also Claude Hopkins' Scientific Advertising, which is available. It's not free anymore. I guess it's $4 in a PDF, but it's scientificadvertising.com, and it's well worth the money. And they could share it and mark it up. So have a great day. Like and share. Be sure to train your designers on direct mail.